know how to fight 6 men. We can teach you how to engage 600. You know how to disappear. We can teach you to become truly invisible. Ninjutsu employs explosive powders.
As weapons?
Or distractions. Theatricality and deception are powerful agents. You must become more than just a man in the mind of your opponent.
Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we'll be taking a look at the 2005 sci-fi action blockbuster Batman Begins, directed by the talented Christopher Nolan, starring Christian Bale as the Caped Crusader, Michael Caine as his trusted manservant Alfred, and a star-studded cast including but not limited to Morgan Freeman, Gary Oldman, Liam Neeson, Katie Holmes, Ken Watanabe, Cillian Murphy, and Tom Wilkinson. Batman Begins is a supreme origin story that chronicles the journey of Bruce Wayne from being a scared child who had lost his family to becoming a man that was driven to fight injustice. Impelled by tragedy, we see the billionaire playboy dedicate his life to uncovering and defeating the corruption that plagued Gotham City. With the prevalent theme of fear which is reinforced throughout the film, we see Bruce Wayne ultimately create an alter ego, a symbol that would strike fear into the hearts of criminals, known as the Batman. There have been some interesting interpretations of Batman over the years, which were influenced by the tone of comic books during that era, ranging from his creation during the Golden Age of comics to the subsequent Silver and Bronze Age adaptations that were restricted by the Comics Code Authority. What I find most interesting about the history of Batman is that most people think the Caped Crusader wasn't that gritty or violent up until the publication of Frank Miller's 4-part epic, The Dark Knight Returns. But this is far from the truth, as Golden Age Batman was far more ruthless. His equipment was pretty simple, with some rope and a utility belt, but what made Golden Age Batman stand out was that he had no qualms with killing people or using guns, which is why police had no choice but to try and arrest or even shoot him on sight. It's no surprise then that the character had to change in order to survive the strict self-censorship of publishers that were struggling to regain public favour. By the 1980s, greater depiction of violence and adult themes was becoming more acceptable, which encouraged Frank Miller to re-establish Batman as an unrelenting, violent crusader in The Dark Knight Returns. However, by then, Batman's rule of never killing as a means to an end endured, and this was important as it ensured he never crossed that line that separated him from the criminals that he fought.
My bets lost away.
That's frightened me. This time my enemies shared my dread.
Batman Begins started off as an attempt to reboot the character of Batman by Warner Brothers after the critical failure of Joel Schumacher's series, which was a goofy parody of the character and the world that he inhabited. Now, word was getting around Warner Brothers that the studio was looking to explore the origins of Batman in a more grounded, dramatic approach, which caught the ears of Christopher Nolan, who had just worked with Warner Brothers on Insomnia.
From the beginning, my interest was in taking on a superhero story but treating it in a realistic fashion.
Nolan pictured a film that dealt with Batman and Bruce Wayne equally to ensure that audiences cared about them both. And after meeting with the executives and proposing a major overhaul by going through parts of Bruce Wayne's life that was yet to be seen on film, Nolan was signed on to direct the then untitled Batman film. Christopher then contacted writer David Goyer, who was a Batman fanatic and the screenwriter for Blade, arguably the most successful comic book to film adaptation of the 90s, and managed to convince David to join him on the project. As well as directing, if there's one thing that Nolan can do, it's assemble the finest cast and crew to work in each of his films, and it really shows in the final product, which is always rich in substance and complexity.
David, unfortunately at that time, said he couldn't possibly write the script because he only had 8 or 9 weeks until he was going to go off to direct.
I said, if I did do it, this is what I would do, and you can just have my ideas for free. And I talked for about an hour and spitballed a large amount of what the film is. He went away again for a few more days. I got a call again saying, you have to do this, you have to do this.
The two literally began pre-production in Nolan's garage, which had been turned into an office, and started plotting out the major beats of the story, using Goyer's knowledge of Batman's history to establish the main characters and the general tone of the film. Nathan Crowley, Nolan's designer on a few of his past projects, also moved into the garage where he began developing concept sketches of Batman and Gotham City, which further fueled the creativity of both Goyer and Nolan, who all described the initial stages as the best environment for creativity they had ever worked in. A lot of great actors auditioned for the roles of Bruce Wayne and his alter ego Batman, including Cillian Murphy, Ian Bailey, Jake Gyllenhaal, Henry Cavill, and Heath Ledger. And though he felt none of them were right for the character of Batman, Nolan was so impressed with Murphy that he convinced the studio to cast him as Scarecrow. He also, of course, went on to cast the talented Heath Ledger as the Joker in the masterpiece of a sequel, The Dark Knight.
Are you the real Batman? No. No? No. No. Then why do you dress up like him?
He's a symbol. We don't have to be afraid of scum like you.
Yeah, you do, Brian. You really do. Look at me. Look at me! You see, this is how crazy Batman's made Gotham.
Nolan had approached Christian Bale during the infant stages of pre-production, before the script was written in 2004, and told him that he would need to bulk up significantly if he wanted the role of Batman, as he had lost a significant amount of weight for his role in The Machinist.
He did call me and say, well, you know, how do you look right now, you know? Like...
He then proceeded to put on a lot of weight in muscle terms and really try and bulk up, because I had impressed upon him the idea that for Bruce Wayne to really fill that suit, he was going to have to be very, very large.
Nolan also explained extensively that he wanted to capture the most dangerous, animalistic incarnation of Batman and bring that to film. Taking that note on board, Bale, who had already read dozens of Batman comics in preparation for the role, adopted the classic crouch position during the screen test, as if Batman was ready to jump into action. Nolan loved this so much that a lot of the scenes in the film were rewritten featuring him in the predatory position. The producers were also blown away by his ability to maintain a calm intensity in his eyes as Bruce Wayne that transformed into a controlled, psychopathic beast when he put on the Batsuit, making Nolan's job of convincing them that he was perfect for the role relatively easy. Dedicated to fill the Batsuit, as was requested, Bale also bulked up rapidly in preparation for the shoot, gaining over 100 pounds in a few months.
I was just stuffing my face all day long and lifting heavy weights and eating more, and I took Chris at his exact word about get as big as you can, but he didn't really think I was going to get that big. A number of the crew I'd worked with on previous movies, they looked at me and they were like, bloody hell, Chris, what are we doing here, Fat Man or Batman?
A lot of changes were made to the Batsuit to make it more practical, compared to the rubber suits that were worn by Val Kilmer and George Clooney, which were restrictive and forced the actors to turn their whole upper body when the characters needed to turn their heads. The old costumes were so problematic that the actors only wore their suits when they were talking, while the stuntmen were used for almost all shots that featured movement. Constructed by costume designer Lindy Hemming and her team, the new Batsuit was composed of a neoprene undersuit, which was shaped by attaching cream latex sections. Christian Bale was then molded and sculpted prior to his physical training so that the team could work on a full body cast. The costume team then brewed different mixtures of foam to find the blend that would be the most flexible, durable, and that would retain the darker shade of black. With the new changes to the Batsuit, Bale was able to turn his head easily, bend his knees to crouch down, and jump on ledges, enabling him to do the majority of his own stunts. Because the actor wore the Batsuit for extended periods of time, I truly think that he was able to inhabit the character of Batman more effectively, unlike Clooney, who seemed like he was wearing the suit for the first time.
The first half of our film takes place before Bruce puts on the costume for the first time. It was important to us that the audience be really invested in Bruce Wayne and not just marking time anytime he was on screen until he would put on the cape and the cowl.
The epic soundtrack, The Batman Begins, was composed by Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard after they visited the set for inspiration. Both composers split the workload in two, with Howard working on scoring the progression of Bruce Wayne, while Zimmer dealt with the development of Batman. The film also saw the start of Hans Zimmer's working relationship with Christopher Nolan, which would blossom into a productive series of films that would define both of their careers. Batman Begins strongly emulates Superman the movie, which is one of Nolan's favourite films growing up as a child. The director even admitted that he wanted to capture the same sense of drama and authenticity that talented actors could bring to comic book films. And I think he was able to achieve this, as Batman Begins helped legitimize superhero films as being able to carry dramatic complexity with the seasoned cast members that it featured. Goyer and Nolan also drew a lot of inspiration from The Man Who Falls, the 1989 comic written by the talented Dennis O'Neil that featured a young Bruce Wayne falling and seeing bats for the first time, which went on to define his perception of fear and how to use it. The story also explored his travels abroad and the training he received around the world, serving as a template that was mixed in with other great comics like Frank Miller's Batman Year One and The Dark Knight Returns. Michael Caine was cast as Bruce Wayne's father figure that provides stability for him in his never-ending quest to fight injustice, adding humour and heart to the film. Caine also invented a complete backstory for Pennyworth as a man who had served in the Special Air Service prior to working for the Waynes, based on the character's mixed history in the British military across numerous publications, and we see this history pop up throughout the series.
But their caravans were being raided in a forest north of Rangoon by a bandit, so we went looking for the stones. But in 6 months, we never met anyone who traded with him.
So why steal them?
Well, because he thought it was good sport. Because some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Katie Holmes was cast as Rachel Dawes, Bruce Wayne's childhood friend and love interest, bringing a gentle warmth and strength to his life, whilst also acting as a tether that connected him to the reality of what was happening in Gotham City at a time when Bruce was only concerned about himself. Morgan Freeman was brought in to play Lucius Fox, an old friend of both Alfred and Thomas Wayne, who ran the Applied Science Division of Wayne Enterprises, and who inadvertently helped Bruce Wayne develop his Batsuit and Batmobile, going on to eventually run the company as its CEO on behalf of Bruce. The outstanding Gary Oldman based his portrayal of Gordon on the character featured in Batman Year One, which explored the beginning of Batman and Gordon's working relationship. Jim Gordon is also one of the most wholesome characters Oldman has ever played, as the kind officer that reassured the young Bruce that he would be okay after the death of his parents. I also thought it was interesting that Oldman was initially cast to play Ra's al Ghul, but when Chris Cooper, who was initially cast as Gordon, pulled out of the project, Nolan thought it would be nice to see Gary Oldman not play the villain for a change. And the outstanding Liam Neeson was of course cast as Henry Ducard, the mysterious man that offered a troubled Bruce guidance and disciplined purpose.
Are you so desperate to fight criminals that you lock yourself in to take them on one at a time?
Actually, there were 7 of them.
I counted 6, Mr. Wayne.
The film begins by showing us a rare glimpse into Bruce Wayne as a child growing up in a loving home, raised by good people who sought to better themselves and the lives of others. And after the tragic death of both Thomas and Martha Wayne at the hands of Joe Chill, we see Alfred taking on the role of his guardian. Now, Bruce Wayne was highly unstable after the death of his parents, and for the longest time, all that he sought was revenge on the man that had taken them away from him.
No, they're never the same, Bruce. Justice is about harmony, revenge is about you making yourself feel better. That is why we have an impartial system.
Oh, your system is broken.
Look beyond your own pain, Bruce. This city is rotting. They talk about the Depression as if it's history, and it's not. Things are worse than ever down here. Falcone may not have killed your parents, Bruce. He's destroying everything that they stood for.
With the help of people like Rachel, he began to see Gotham beyond his own personal pain. Bruce then confronted Carmine Falcone, who had his assassins take out Chill after he agreed to give evidence against the crime boss. There he learned firsthand from Falcone that fear was the ultimate weapon, which had allowed him to control so many aspects of the justice system in Gotham, from the judges to police officers.
This is a world you'll never understand, and you always fear what you don't understand.
Frustrated with how rampant crime had become in Gotham, and how little he could do to stop it as a man, Bruce went around the world learning about how the criminal world functioned. Getting involved in all manner of crime, Bruce wound up in a Tibetan prison, where he was often attacked by other inmates, in what he saw as preparation for the evil he planned on defeating in his own city. There he meets a man named Henry Ducard, who we later find out was Ra's al Ghul, the leader of a group of mysterious mercenaries who offered him the means to fight injustice. Training in an isolated monastery over many years, Bruce was taught how to use the shadows to disappear, along with numerous fighting techniques that enabled him to become a terrifying wraith-like figure.
To conquer fear, you must become fear. You must bask in the fear of other men. And men fear most what they cannot see.
After receiving his tutelage, Bruce was asked to act as an executioner and punish a criminal by killing him, which he strongly disagreed to, leaving him no choice but to turn on those who had taken him in. It's also here that the true purpose of the League of Shadows was finally revealed to Bruce, which was to destroy Gotham City, as they had done with many cities in the past during the centuries that they had existed. I think it's important to note that if it weren't for Alfred reminding him time and time again who he was and what his family stood for, it's likely that Bruce Wayne would have joined the League of Shadows under Ra's al Ghul.
This is a mausoleum. If I have my way, I'll pull the damn thing down brick by brick.
This house, Master Wayne, has sheltered 6 generations of your family.
Why do you give a damn, Alfred? It's not your family.
I give a damn because a good man once made me responsible for what was most precious to him in the whole world.
Coming back to Gotham with the training he'd acquired abroad, Bruce began cultivating his alter ego by exploring what frightened him and using that against the criminals. We also see him building what would become the Batcave and the foundations of Wayne Manor, which served as his headquarters. After refining his tools and confirming his means of attack, Batman was able to single-handedly bring down the menacing Carmine Falcone and all of his goons, sending a direct message to the police and the people of Gotham that nobody was above the law. What Batman did not know was that Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul had been working together with Falcone by smuggling their fear toxin with a shipment of drugs in a plan to destroy the city by turning the residents against each other. Emboldened by the belief that he could save his city, and with the assistance of his friends, Bruce Wayne was able to effectively stop the League of Shadows without abandoning what he stood for, solidifying Batman as the righteous protector of Gotham City.
Well, you took my advice about theatricality a bit literally.
It ends here.
I really thought that both Nolan and Goyer did a great job by choosing Ra's al Ghul as the villain of the film, instead of characters that we had already seen in the past like the Joker, the Riddler, and Two-Face. Already inhabiting the side of Batman and his mysterious past that had never been seen, Ra's al Ghul was the perfect counterweight to Batman in an origin film. I also thought that Liam Neeson was a fantastic choice as Ra's al Ghul, balancing dual characters much like Bruce himself. As Henry Ducard, he genuinely managed to encapsulate everything Bruce Wayne was looking for in a father. I mean, they were both willing to dedicate their entire lives to fighting injustice. The only problem was, each of them sought to do this in a way that conflicted with the other. The film's success is also heavily weighted in Christian Bale's ability to transform into 2 separate characters that we care for in equal measure, which had been the crux of Nolan's vision for the character during its inception. Bale is convincing in his adopted identity of Batman as a focused, morally incorruptible, and almost elemental beast of consequence, and balances this perfectly with his portrayal of Bruce Wayne as the eccentric playboy used to disguise his true identity. His struggle to have a normal life which conflicted with his responsibility as Batman really helped ground him as a character that was only human, which made his achievements all the more impressive. Because Batman didn't kill the criminals that he faced, they needed to incorporate a form of martial arts that could incapacitate people quickly and allow him to engage many people at once. They also needed something unique to represent the training that Bruce Wayne would have received under the tutelage of Ra's al Ghul, which is why during the initial stages of rehearsals, Buster Reeves, a jiu-jitsu world champion and the stuntman they were using as a double for Batman, suggested that they look into the KC fighting method. Developed by Andy Norman and Justo Dieguez, KFM utilized a defensive covering technique in an offensive manner, which saw a double-arm covering stance called the pensador utilize the arms that were defending to strike while maintaining the covering position in front of the face. Using the most durable parts of the body like the elbows, head and fist, each of the strikes were quick and heavy, designed to break specific bones across the body, which went hand in hand with Batman's portrayal in the comics that saw him instinctively incapacitate criminals with brute force and technique.
It's very practical. I mean, these guys actually train often in nightclubs and things, and they will smoke up the room, and it's all about using what's available and grabbing that ashtray and smacking somebody with it, or being able to have a fight with somebody while sitting next to them. And it's a really great fighting style.
Conceptualized as an exaggerated contemporary New York, the visual effects for Gotham were composed of hundreds of thousands of photos of both Chicago and New York that were superimposed onto a digital template. The production team also built life-size pieces of Gotham City to enable Nolan to shoot most of the film in camera, as he didn't want to rely heavily on CGI. While the cityscapes were added to the film using digital effects, most of the stunts were done live in front of the camera, from the fight scenes, explosions, to Batman's use of the tumbler. The Batmobile was also revamped with practicality in mind, with Nolan imagining a hybrid Lamborghini crossed with a Humvee that had parts of a fighter jet.
Chris Nolan wanted the Batmobile to be a real car, not just a car that looked pretty but didn't actually function. You know, his gem was, look, I want this to be a mean machine. I want it to perform. I want it to go through things, and that was, you know, how we went into developing this whole car.
It's 9'4" at its widest. Lengthwise, it's 15 feet, and height-wise, it's about 5 foot, I think. Weighs 2.5 tons. There's nearly half a ton of rear axle and wheels and tyres.
We went out to try and kill the car. You know, that's what we were trying to do, push it to the limits.
I was waiting for something not to work. It just landed and just took off straight away.
You can get to play Batman, but unless you're the stuntman who's driving that car, you don't get to have the coolest job.
Well, that's all for today, folks. Thanks to all of you guys who requested we take a look at Batman Begins. If there's any other stuff you'd like me to check out, please don't hesitate to ask. Also, if you'd like to support Film Comics Explained and would like to see more videos like this, please check out the channel's Patreon account, which I'll leave links to below. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
You're stronger than your father.
You didn't know my father.
But I know the rage that drives you. That impossible anger strangling the grief until the memory of your loved one is just poison in your veins. Once I had a wife. My great love. She was taken from me. Like you, I was forced to learn there are those without decency who must be fought without hesitation, without pity.